Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. And this is The Early Life of Rasputin by Manly P. Hall, an article taken from The All-Seeing Eye, Volume 5, Number 2, November 1930. The Early Life of Rasputin by Manly P. Hall. Gregori Efimovich Rasputin was unquestionably the instrument of an outraged Providence. The alchemy of life which produced this strange man endowed him with the qualities necessary to the accomplishment of his mission. The child was as great a mystery as the man, but maturity rendered the potentialities more evident. Yet in all things the end was consistent with the beginning. The story of Rasputin has its actual beginning in the 12th year of his life, for at that time destiny first showed its hand. Gregori and his brother were playing together by the side of a stream, when the latter, without warning, fell backward into the icy water. Without an instant's hesitation, Gregori jumped to the rescue, and both boys would have drowned together, clasped in each other's arms, had not a peasant who chanced to be passing by rescued them. The brother died of pneumonia, and Gregori, sickening from the chill of exposure, was desperately ill for an extended period of time. It was while recuperating from this episode that the boy first demonstrated the presence of a supernormal power. Previous to this time, he had been a somewhat moody and peculiar child, but now to the minds of the simple peasants, he became positively uncanny. It was noised about that young Gregori possessed second sight. In fact, he became a sort of local oracle, looked askance at but consulted when all other mediums failed. His fame grew from his detection of a horse thief. It was a most dramatic situation. A group of villagers had gathered at the home of his parents to discuss the matter of a recent theft, when Rasputin, presumably unconscious, rose from his sickbed and, appearing suddenly in the midst of the circle of astonished peasants, actually jumped upon the back of one of the leading citizens of the town and pounded the amazed man with his fists, crying out, "He stole the horse!" Inspired by the impression that the boy had made, later investigation proved him to have been correct, and the townsfolk whispered together that there was something very strange about a child who could thus read the innermost thoughts of another. Parallel with the development of this peculiar psychic power, there also grew an increasing tendency towards dissipation, so that Gregori became ever more of a contradiction. Rasputin's career reveals with vividness the disaster which nearly always overtakes the untrained mystic. Between the ages of 12 and 30, his life discloses nothing of particular significance. Adolescence brought with it a strong animalistic emphasis, intensifying the appetites and emotions and making the physical nature predominant. It has been said that the worst sinners make the greatest saints. If this be true, Rasputin laid the groundwork for canonization in his early years. Like St. Francis of Assisi and Raymond Lully, he sinned heartily that his salvation might be all the more complete. In fact, this thought became a definite element in Rasputin's philosophy of life. He had a Lutheran twist, for he seemed to say with that great divine, "O blessed evil that doth merit us salvation." At 30, we find Rasputin with a definite reputation for dissipation upon the one hand, and a peculiar mystical insight into spiritual things upon the other. Being uneducated, Gregori could not philosophize upon the involvements of theology or the elaborate ecclesiastical system of the Russian Church. In religious matters, he was more or less an instinctual ignorantine. He did not seem to regard knowledge as a necessary means to any particular end. Regarding the peasant as the prototype of all humanity, he functioned entirely upon the proletarian level. His marriage at about 30 temporarily steadied the young man. However, he rapidly drifted back into dissipation, frequenting taverns and brothels, apparently consecrated to the task of transforming himself into a perfect sinner. 33 is a sacred number and of peculiar significance in the age of a man, and it was in his 33rd year that Rasputin felt himself called to a holy life. It was this summons that brought him to the foot of the imperial throne, and finally to his end in the dark waters of a half-frozen river. This determination to devote his life to spiritual concerns came as the result of prolonged meditation. While plowing one day, as he came to the end of a row and was turning his team, the heavens opened and a choir of divine musicians filled the air with soft music. As he bowed terror-stricken, there floated above him the white-robed figure of the Virgin Mary, surrounded by saints and martyrs. Rasputin would never discuss this vision other than to affirm its profound effect upon his life. Strange to relate, this extremely significant occurrence produced no appreciable change in the habits of the man. He never seemed to sense the application of virtue to his personal life, possibly because he had no intellectual concept of vice. Centuries will probably elapse before we have the perspective to analyze the true position occupied by the so-called mad monk. Certain facts, however, stand out. That is that his public life was an almost unbroken series of achievement, that with a simple peasant gesture, he outwitted the intrigues of his adversaries, and that with the good of his people at stake, he devoted himself unreservedly to their improvement and emancipation. This he partly accomplished, with church and state arrayed against him by virtue of his peculiar hold upon the Tsar and the royal family. Rasputin's philosophy of life will follow in the next video. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.